Well, Ben, welcome back to the show, man. Great to visit with you as always.
Thanks for having me as always. It's great to be on with you. I'm glad that it's not raining here as much as it is there, but
Yeah,
it's coming
it's
our
been
way.
it's been crazy in Texas. I was telling you off the air, my son is it's like baseball season just doesn't exist. We haven't had a game in like a month.
It's crazy.
23 days of rain in May and June has been kind of off to the same start.
Oh, that's painful.
Yeah.
We have a different weather event right now with our cicadas. And it was like yesterday, the cicadas are swarming so heavy right now that
Uh-huh.
it's showing up on Dopplers,
I saw that in
It's
your news release there.
it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like I had to
I
put it in there because I'm just living it. You open the door and they all fly in the house. It's just like the swarm. It's crazy.
it's like biblical, but
Right.
I
Very much
have
so.
I've been seeing a lot of people like posting cicada recipes, which
Yep.
I think is funny. I
Yeah,
don't
we
know.
sent that around too. There's like a Frank's Red Hot was like sponsoring a whole booklet on recipes. My brother-in-law's been making tacos. He said they're not too bad. They're good with the cold beer. So I haven't had a chance to try them myself yet. My wife doesn't want me bringing the bugs in the house, but
Yeah, well, Bobcat's not too bad, but that's not
right.
something that I'm trying to eat again.
No.
So, I
Check the
mean, I
box.
did it
I'm
once and
excited. I'm more excited for turkeys to eat these cicadas because I
oh
think it's
yeah.
gonna be good for next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've got a lot to get into today. Let's start with something that's important for my home state of Texas, and that is the exotic wildlife bill, where essentially, Hunters for the Hungry is a great program. You can take a white-tailed deer, say your freezer's full, you're doing management on your lease or your property, and you could take as many deer as you want to processors that are enlisted in that program, but you can't take exotics. So, and we have so many exotics in Texas, both free ranging and in high fences, but a lot, you still have to do management on those species as well, and it seems like an oversight that this isn't already legal.
Yep. Oversight for sure. And I think during the pandemic, it was kind of laid bare that it's a no brainer to legalize it. They
Yeah,
did a temporary lift on it last year. So the bill that's going through now is to just make that temporary lift a permanent one. And it's gone through, all of Austin so far. It's just sitting on the governor's desk. So we just need to get him to sign it. He's got until June 20th to sign. I know he'd be supportive.
yeah,
I just want to make sure that he knows it's sitting on his desk. So we've been really teeing up, our membership to the grassroots, really just kind of lighting up his phone line. So folks listening in, are able to, just text SCI or text 73075 SCI to those numbers to get on our advocacy platform. And you can send a note right to the governor and get that done because it is a no brainer. And who doesn't want more, variety in their selections, right?
yeah. Well, and just from the standpoint of meat is getting more expensive. Pandemic has, been some of that, but also Biden's administration, everything's more expensive now. So it's common knowledge when there's Democrat in the White House, everything costs more. I mean, look at gas prices.
Car fuel, human fuel, like
Yeah.
every version of it. Yeah.
So speaking of Biden, what about his ATF appointment, David Chipman? I think it was Senator Kennedy. They had his
Yeah.
appointment hearing it was like 10 days ago, and he was asking him to define what an AR is. Well, actually, first he said,
Assault weapon, right?
"Do you want to ban ARs?" And he said yes. Then he's like, "Do you know how would you define an AR?" And he's like, "Oh, I can't do that." Like, why can't you're going to be the head of the ATF? You
Right.
should be the first person that knows how to define what you call an AR. And he
And he
wouldn't
can
do it.
Right. He could define that as easily as anything else that he could define. He
Yeah.
just chose not to do it. But he did give some answers and insights during that hearing, which a lot of the times you watch those things and they don't say anything of real substance, but massive concern. I know just talking with the rest of like the sportsman's community, even NSSF, right? They never weighed in on an ATF director. And this one, it's full bore, NRA full bore on it. I mean, we're full bore on it. Just so many just lines of concern. He just stands out. I mean, he was a paid lobbyist for gun control groups.
It would be like nominating Beto to have that position.
Totally. After that's what he said, after everything he said about how he wants to take them all away.
Yeah.
I mean, it needs to be a concern for the entire sportsman's community, just given how much we all give to conservation, right? It's not just, hunting rifles and shotguns that go into Pittman Robertson. I mean, it's everything. It's the most commonly used rifle in America, the AR-15, that's paying into it, that 10 to 11% excise tax. And you get, 10 million new people coming on board as gun owners over the last year. I mean, now's the best time for conservation ever, the way the system's working, right?
Yeah.
But something like that would just be threatening. And not to mention, which, to be quite honest, I'd forgotten about, he was the opposition witness against the SHARE Act, which was the sportsman's package that the entire community was pushing forward, about 4 years back. He was in the hearing as the opposition saying to oppose the bill. Yeah. And I mean, that's just completely counter to the community. So we're going above and beyond to, try to shut it down. Need to be able to flip 2 Democrats in order to get there. I think Republicans are lockstep in opposing at this stage, at least. We still have to make sure, some folks like in Maine don't get squirrely, but we're able to get 2 folks to come around. We could avoid it. I just say it was kind of silly on the administration side to even put him up. They could get someone in that job that's going to do what they want him to do, but he's the one that's just got the, tattoo on his forehead saying, I will ban,
Right.
Be like, okay. So we're bringing the fight. It's coming up quick. The vote's going to be next week. They've been off for Memorial Day recess, but they're going to try to jam it through.
That's a daunting one, though, for the Second Amendment and gun owners. You mentioned the AR-15, the most popular platform in America. And I'm just thinking about all of take the guns out of it. You got to have ammunition to feed those guns. And that's probably where the majority of the funding is coming from. That would just be devastating for conservation and the Second Amendment. So a double-edged sword there. What about the hunt fish rule? And I believe it's like 2 million acres of land that would be opened up to access for hunting and fishing. Is there a real opposition to this?
Yeah, there always is. I mean, you'll get local groups that'll push back that are uninformed on hunting, that'll say it's going to, create chaos and have, rounds flying through their kitchen window. There's always been pushback, so under Trump, he did the biggest expansion ever on national wildlife refuges, adding in over 4 million new acres of access.
Nobody ever wants to talk about that, though, by the way. They all want to vilify Trump as this guy who was only bad for hunting and conservation in the environment. I'm just like, show me what he did that was bad.
Right. Unprecedented. I mean, just what was committed to opening up access, what was done with, say, migration corridors. These are ideas that have been floated about in a bipartisan way for ages, that actually got done under him. So he really laid the groundwork for and listened to what folks were asking for with increasing access, on refuges. It's part of the mandate for managing refuges is that hunting is a contributing force to conservation. So open it where it can be open. So he took that to heart and made it happen. And now we're seeing a proposed rule that would do an additional 2 million acres for access. And that's, across the country. I wish I'd done my homework right before this to see what, if anything, is in Texas, maybe something down on the Gulf. But opportunities abound in places where they didn't before, for a whole range of species, whether it's, fish or mammals. It's proposed now. So going to be final. And they're taking comments from folks up until the end of this month, like June 30th. So right now, we're just asking all of our members and all the advocates out there to just pour in and support it, because I wouldn't take it for granted. There are groups that make money off of trying to shut it down. I mean, what Trump did over the last 4 years, I mean, that got sued by Humane Society, to shut it down. Now this has been put out by this administration. It's not being sued, but they'll still try to back channel, shut it down.
What about Europe and trophy bans there? And why should Americans even care?
Well, it's all like politicians, not all of them, but a number of them are very lazy and they like to copy bad ideas, So if it starts in Brussels, it'll end up in California, it'll end up in Austin, maybe not this session, right? But over in Europe, we're seeing that same fight that we're seeing everywhere else with trophies, where it's just emotion driven, shut it down, written poorly, just without any sort of scientific merit to it. So they're moving along where their body, their plenary, is having a vote on their biodiversity strategy. Their 30 by 30 is what we call in the U.S. It's the same impetus over there. It was all started, at the Convention on Biological Diversity. But they're having their vote where the language was originally drafted that would just shut down imports of all endangered species, which is way more extreme than what we see. Here we have enhancement findings, non-detriment findings, if it helps with conservation, then it's approved. This would just totally shut it down. It doesn't clarify what those species are even. So we've been working really hard with our allies over there with FACE. That's the big European hunting organization based out of Brussels, to clarify that it applies to commercial, not to, individual imports like trophies. We've got it in a good place right now. We got through debate yesterday where the only mention of hunting was positive from some of our friends over there. But there will be a vote. It's done in private. They don't have it on like C-SPAN like we do here. So we'll have some details later today on where it went, but we're getting it in the right direction. Really did that in a good way, by seeing engagement from the scientific community, from SULI, from the community leaders, African community leaders, Community Leadership Network, and then from, some of the ambassadors that are in Brussels that represent their countries back in Africa, but are living in Brussels. And they all messaged in, telling their side of the story on it. And it's shown to be very effective.
Could you imagine the arrogance of these people who want to tell African countries how to manage their wildlife? Like,
absolutely.
It's just totally moronic and vain, and just these people have they don't care clearly. And it's funny to me because the left always says, oh, we're the humanitarian party, and we're for human rights and philanthropy and all this other crap. If you really were that, you wouldn't be trying to take away. We don't want you to have the right to make a living. And also we don't care about the animals either, because they're going to be the first things that are wiped out. You can't make a buck off of a herd of blessed buck. Okay, well, we're going to shoot all the blessed buck and we're going to put cows there. How do you like that?
Yep, exactly. Well, I think it's like with Campfire, it's like the funds derived from Campfire directly benefit 200,000 people, indirectly 600,000 people. That's a lot of lives, And then they've tried to replace, the hunting with like photo safaris, but it's never been able to replace it because no one's taking a photo safari in those communities and places that people go to hunt. We're crazy. We'll pay good money and travel far distances, to sleep on a rock. What I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Kind of in the same vein, Connecticut has been in the hunting industry's news of late. It seems like Connecticut's always trying to introduce some stupid trophy importation ban, but it seems like there is actually good news on thwarting the latest advancement.
Yeah, I mean, fingers crossed, but a lot of good work has gone into Connecticut, which is, like you said, I mean, it's a tough spot. That's a bad idea factory, number one. Mm-hmm. I can say all I want badly about Hartford, Connecticut, because I was born there and I crawled out of there, literally crawled out there. It's like, I'm out. But yeah, so it was introduced as just like another one, just to shut it all down, and it would have preempted Fish and Wildlife Service federal law, which you can't do. And we've sued on that before and won, in New Jersey, which forced California, when they passed their bill, to veto it and toss it out. So we sent a great letter, from our crack legal team, just explaining like, you can do this and you will be sued and you will fail and you'll look foolish because you're preempting, federal law. And they took it to heart. It was, basically, quoted during the debates. They amended the bill. I see it right now in its current iteration as toothless. By the time this probably goes on Instagram or live, we'll know whether or not it's even been signed by the governor. It's still being hung up with the amendment process. Nothing additionally bad has been put on there. We've only added amendments that have kind of defanged it, I'd say. So if things go well, knock on wood, we'll just get out of session without it making it to the governor. If it gets to the governor, we'll remind him again, does he want to waste his time signing something that's going to, get him sued, cost him more money and not fix any problem? But that's just been a really fun session with them, just educating, just like seeing how grossly uneducated some of the folks were, on how it works, like how are we going to stop people from coming in with what do they call it? Rhino horn, which, like rhino ivory, which is not, in a suitcase into Hartford Airport. It's like, okay, we got to take so many steps back. So we ended up just educating them, going through how over-regulated the whole process is. I'm not pushing like saying we had to deregulate all of this, but it's the most regulated process possible. So many checks and balances in place before anything comes into the country. And that was eye-opening. We ended up turning some votes our way just from, going through a PowerPoint of just A to B, how you get the trophy over. It was good stuff. But yeah, I think we're in a good place there right now, but more to report, by next week.
Speaking of trophies, and you mentioned earlier, well, I don't know if you mentioned the big five. You said endangered species. The big five are not endangered. In certain parts of the world, sure, black rhino endangered, but they're trying to add giraffe to this list. That seems to be their latest goal. And I don't know if it's just because they're big and they're spotted or what. But
yeah, they're big, charismatic megafauna, right?
Yeah. And have I told you that I'm going to shoot one, or I'm going to hunt one in July? That's
awesome.
Yeah.
Where are you going?
South Africa.
That's awesome.
And I didn't really have the desire, mostly because where am I going to put the damn thing, right? And I just didn't. But I have eaten it over there. My buddy shot one 3 or 4 years ago. Absolutely delicious.
I've heard that.
Again, nothing goes to waste over there. The guys fight over like the trackers and stuff. They fight over the intestinal lining of the animals. Like it's awesome. Nothing
Every little bit goes to use. Yes. That's awesome.
We took part of my Cape Buffalo to a school. The kids literally were jumping up and down because they knew they were going to get red meat. And the cool thing, the school that we went to, my safari company, John X Safaris, they put in electricity for that school. They dug a well. We played soccer on a field that they leveled, put up the goals. They have done everything for that school, and it's all based off of $100. And so anyway, my kiddos, they're like, Dad, why don't you shoot a giraffe? And I was like, that never really appealed to me. But now that they're trying to put them on the list and they're trying to tell me I can't, and then my kids are like, Dad, hunt a giraffe.
I am.
Okay, we're gonna have a nice giraffe rug. Fingers crossed if it works.
Is that what you're gonna do?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the room to put a full, giraffe mount, but I think a rug would be cool in the trophy room. So, what about switching gears here? I saw this, which I thought was great news. Colorado, we are trying to prevent them from using hunter dollars for wolf reintroduction, which obviously we were vehemently opposed to from the get-go. It passed by less than 1 percentage point when the Colorado populace got to vote on what to do with whether or not to reintroduce them, and it was like 50 point like 6%, 50 like 0.6 or something like that. It was absurd.
It was the closest election in the whole state for any of the ballot initiatives or anything. Nothing was that close. Like even for like elected officials statewide, like the Senate race, like the Republican, who's tremendous, incredible senator, great friend of ours, Cory Gardner, he lost in a big landslide. But something like this, like kept it so close. Our members were so active there, but still passed. And now they're trying to work through figuring out how to actually do it. Like their bad idea, they've actually got to own it now.
Right.
So saw some great movement with preventing with legislation out there to prevent dollars from hunters going towards the reintroduction. So that's money that goes to Colorado Parks and Wildlife that would be used for it. Because that's the.
I wonder how they'll fund it.
What's that?
I wonder how they will fund it.
They won't. We wanted it to collapse. I mean, it's just pointing out like the facts in a different way. That it's not feasible without our dollars. And also it just highlights, what a strain it's already going to be on their, natural resource department, which already doesn't have a huge budget. Now they've got to spend all their dollars on a new problem, an invented problem.
Yeah. Yeah. One that will be very expensive.
They call it a reintroduction. We're going to call it an introduction,
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially when I just have to say, with all the footage of actual like collared wolves that are showing up in Colorado, like you don't have to do this. Like it's going to happen itself.
Yeah, they're coming.
They're not managed.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. People don't realize wolves are expanding their range rapidly throughout the West, and obviously the Great Lakes states have their own issues up there, but wolves are hard to kill. They're hard to trap. They're hard to hunt, and that's why you have state agencies like Idaho Fish and Game shooting them out of helicopters and not telling the public about it.
Yep.
But they do it.
Somebody's
because they do it for their elk herd, because that's where conservation dollars come from. What a mess. What about the last thing I have here on my notes is, and this directly affects things like, our convention, SHOT Show, but I think we defeated a Nevada bill that would have greatly affected the viability of those type of events.
Yeah, I mean, it would have really thrown some chaos. I mean, it was a lot of messaging from some of the casinos and from the Senate Majority Leader, Democrat over there, to just further restrictions on firearms at casinos. I mean, they've already got stickers up saying, no firearms on the floor and all that. But it would have been basically a gift to Bloomberg and every town. And we were able to defeat it. Session expired. It died on Memorial Day. It's a great day. It was opposed by us, NSSF, obviously with SHOT Show, NRA, our great friends, opposed even by the ACLU because as being a racist bill, a stop and frisk bill. So it ended up, caving on its own, but it was a real threat, and we got to action on it quickly, and we're able to make sure it didn't become a reality, so that we're able to enjoy the show that we're all planning on enjoying in 225 days, not counting.
Yeah. It's going to be great to be back at conventions in person, and I'm certainly looking forward to coming. It's January. What is the actual date?
What's in 225 days? I want to say it's the 19th of January.
Okay.
Kickoff.
Right on. Well, that's all I have on the run sheet here for today. If folks want to get involved with SCI, we've got chapters all over the country, but from a organizational standpoint, what's the best way to do that?
SafariClub.org. Click on membership. Make it as easy as possible right there. I would also just, encourage everyone to get onto our Action Advocacy Center. That's free of charge. You just send a text message, 73075, text SCI to 73075. That gets you looped in. That's when we start telling you about all the hot items going on in your backyard, and then also nationally and internationally where you can get involved. So
we've talked about all the great things that you guys are doing. It's not free to do that. So membership dollars obviously go a long way towards helping in this fight. The things that we've talked about today. What is a annual membership?
$65. Okay. And that, what that pays for, it all goes back into what we're doing and the unique role that we play, in defending hunting across the full spectrum, and just access across the full spectrum. Nobody else, from my vantage in DC, is doing it the way we are. Other species specific do great jobs in that regard, but no one's putting, that hunter first. And those $65, it goes right into the efforts that we're doing. And it can always be used just with the fights like we're talking about on every single front possible. Not to mention, when I'm going in and meeting with, a senator or with a member of Congress, they're not there to meet with, Ben Cassidy. They're there because I'm on the shoulders of, our entire army. The bigger the army, the louder the voice, the more we get listened to.
Right. SafariClub.org. That is the website. Ben, always a pleasure catching up. I look forward to our next conversation.
Me too. Anytime. Thanks.
All right. Take it easy.
You too.